Welcome to ParadoxWalk podcast, focusing on glitch in the matrix type activities, paranormal events, dream realities, and UFOs, cryptids, anything completely out of the ordinary and strange. This is episode 5, and today I have a slightly sore throat, and my voice might sound slightly odd, so I apologize in advance for that. But today I have a story of someone that believes they time traveled inside a dream and then was hunted down by somebody inside the dream in their real life later at their place of work. Really odd. But the first story I'm going to get to here would be a dimensional shift when someone was driving on the road. This story takes place in Mississippi, but it was on a trip that was from Nebraska. I'm just going to read this verbatim. This was posted on Glitch in the Matrix Reddit forum. Even the very first start is odd. This post is titled, "A Town in Mississippi That Doesn't Exist." And he starts off, quote, "You may notice that this story was posted before. For some reason it was removed, and the moderators don't know why, so they told me just to repost it. Just wanted to let everyone know the situation. I was driving my grandmother home from Nebraska. I think we were traveling south on Highway 45. Everything was normal. We were just cruising along. There were no side roads and no gradual splits. We were just driving straight down Highway 45. All of a sudden, we found ourselves in this small little town. The road didn't veer off, and no turns were made. All of a sudden, we started noticing strange things. Wide open, hilly land turned instantly to thick woods that you couldn't see through. The trees started getting closer and closer to the highway until they were almost brushing the driver's side mirror. The thick wooded area started giving away to buildings. Looking around, my grandma and I found ourselves in a little town. It was just a main street that led to the edge of the town, which held a strange, large, gray and black church or town hall type building. There were very few cars, and the cars that were there were odd. One of them I remembered. It looked like a mix between 50s and 80s construction. The town itself was just so strange. The second we pulled into this little town, my grandma starts getting extremely uneasy. I knew something was up. The town was just wrong. It's hard to describe. At first glance, it looked like any other small town. It's when you started examining things more closely that the wrongness of this place became apparent. The resulting effect was just creepy beyond words. I think it's called the uncanny valley, when something looks a little too lifelike but not lifelike enough, and you're left with just a very creepy sensation. That is how this impersonation, he puts in parentheses or like scare quotes, like impersonation of a town left us feeling. It's hard to describe the strangeness of this place. Okay, imagine that somebody took a very skilled artist who has never seen what a small town in America looks like. This artist is given a detailed and highly stylized description of, say, small town, Main Street, USA. He then paints an extremely detailed portrait of what he believes a small town in America looks like. The resulting painting would be very odd at best, or downright terrifying at worst. That's the best way I can describe this town. A deceptively realistic representation of a small town. A strange place designed off somewhat flawed information with no first-hand knowledge to aid in the detail. The end result is a place that looks normal, but upon closer inspection is the stuff of nightmares. Everything about the place just seemed off, especially when you take into account the fact that we never made any turns. One moment we headed south down Highway 45, the next the forest on either side of us thickens to the point where you couldn't see anything through it. The forest growing so close to the highway that you could reach out your window and touch them. The forest then thins out and opens up. Out of absolutely nowhere, a little town pops up. We're slowly down into the small little main street town. At this point, I'm thinking, wow, this is really strange. My grandma, on the other hand, is already in the we should be anywhere else on the planet except for right here stage. I didn't see any people at all there. In hindsight, that's probably a good thing. The big building at the end of the street, he puts that in like capital letters, the big building at the end of the street. The building that looked like it was the most important building in town. It had gray walls, a black roof, I think 4 towers, maybe more. If the town looked somewhat ominous, then that building looks downright diabolical. I was becoming very apprehensive the more I thought about our situation. I knew something extremely strange was happening. Highway 45 doesn't just dead end into a town. It's not on any maps. Like I said, there were no gradual turnoffs, and we definitely did not make any turns. Getting back to the way the place looked, it was like a dream. At first glance, if you were just driving by, everything might appear to be normal. You stop to look for a moment, and you see so many irregularities. Windows in wrong places, storefronts with no doors and no signs. There were no other streets turning in or out. It seriously looked like just the description of a small town. It was missing so many details. On the way into it, the woods got immensely thick. The trees were growing all the way up to the highway. There was no shoulder. A tree could have taken my mirror just by getting close to the edge. Sorry, I know I mentioned the forest before. It was so strange. Tension was growing in the car. About halfway to the building at the end of the street, again he capitalized it, the building at the end of the street, I had slowed the car to a crawl. My grandma, in the seat next to me, was absolutely freaking out at this point. To her credit, she was doing it relatively silently, just terrified and shaking, saying, "We need to leave, we need to leave." I guess I'm lucky that my grandma was with me. If I had been alone in that place, curiosity would have absolutely gotten the better of me, and I would have definitely gotten out to explore. It felt like we were in a place that we were not supposed to be, a place that we weren't supposed to know about, that human eyes were not meant to see. It was like this mask was put over whatever was really there, just in case any uninvited guest showed up. All they would see was a strange small town. I don't know how we ended up there, a place where people aren't supposed to be. If I'm right, and what we saw was just masking something, then how terrifying would the truth have been? Thank you, Grandma. You probably saved my life, because I would have absolutely had to have explored that place. I did a 2-point turn. If you don't know what that is, it's when you pull close to the right side of the road, you put your car in reverse and turn your wheel all the way to the left. You hit the gas and your car spins around backwards. You hit the brakes right before you go off the road on the other side. Drop it into drive, turn your wheel back to the right, and hit the gas. 2 points, reverse then forward. We start driving back up the street that we'd come down, and I honestly didn't even know if this would work. I had no idea how the nature of this place worked. I was half afraid that we would be stuck there. But soon the strange, odd-looking buildings gave way to the thick forest, the forest that was almost touching the highway. After driving through this for a while, the trees started clearing out a bit. We drove until the highway went back to normal, with the trees far off the highway, and the forest not so unbelievably dense. I continued driving north until I saw a sign that said I was going north on Highway 45. I made a U-turn and started heading back south down Highway 45. All the way through, there were no turnoffs. There were no merge lanes, and there were no slight turns I might have mistaken for the main highway. Once driving south on Highway 45 again, nothing else weird happened, besides not seeing any turnoffs and never coming across any unnervingly dense woods. Grandma was shaking. She and I both knew something out of this world had just happened. I don't know what town we ended up in. I do know that there's no such town in Mississippi. I checked. So this is one of my bigger glitch stories. I would absolutely love to know if anything like this has happened to anyone else out there.